Welcome to the Uptime Wind Energy Podcast Spotlight. I'm your host, Alan Hall, along with my co-host, Joel Saxum. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most significant developments in wind energy, the Inflation Reduction Act, and its impact on wind turbine repowering. Joining us is Tyler Gifford, Director of Repower at Deutsche Windtechnik. Tyler leads repowering initiatives across 9 wind energy facilities in 5 states, managing over 1 gigawatts of clean energy capacity. His hands-on experience with multiple turbine platforms and deep understanding of wind farm operations makes Tyler the perfect guest to discuss the complexities of wind turbine repowering under the IRA.
Welcome to Uptime Spotlight, shining light on wind energy's brightest innovators. This is the progress powering tomorrow.
Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
There's a bunch of questions that we want to ask you about the IRA bill and how repowering is happening. But as we talk across the United States, there seems to be a lot of challenges there. What are some of those challenges that wind farms that are getting close to repowering are facing as they start to make some of these decisions?
Good question, Alan. I mean, typically with repowering, a lot of people think of, I'm going to tear the tower down and I'm going to start fresh and I'm going to put a whole new one up. So what we think about is there's another approach to this. The 80/20 and the IRA has really introduced a new opportunity in the industry to where we can take older assets that have been operating reliably for years and you can evaluate, understand your fair market value. And there's an opportunity to where that fair market value is so low to where you can go out and you can understand what is a value add upgrade for this asset. Doesn't necessarily have to be a full drivetrain or take off the whole nacelle and put a whole nacelle on it. It could be that your fair market value is so low that you want to evaluate. Typically, owners want to evaluate 2 things. They want higher AEP, they want to increase AEP, or they want to improve reliability. Those are the 2 big things that owners want. So for Deutsche Windtechnik, that's what we do. We meet with those owners and we understand, okay, you may have an asset that's 15 to 20 years old, but there's a way that you can take advantage of these PTCs just like the bigger operating assets out there. So we'll evaluate, look at what are your pain points? What's causing you to lose reliability, lose availability? What's causing technicians to have to go out there and climb? What are your pain points? And then we start to target those pain points by finding upgrades that will go after those things that are causing those reliability concerns. So that could be things. It could be drivetrain. It could be that you need to focus on your blades. But it could also be smaller things that get overlooked. It could be condition monitoring systems that some of these older assets just don't have. It could be different things like sensors and controller systems and things that day to day are causing towers to come offline and causing owners pain and causing owners money. And we can qualify them for these PTCs without possibly the large crane costs, without possibly having to pull big expensive permits and things like that.
Yeah. So what we're diving into here is just a different way of looking at repowering. So classically, everybody thinks repower, I got to take a whole new nacelle, a whole new everything, because what they're looking to do is basically requalify for PTC. This is the joke that Phil always says, we're PTC farming, not wind farming at some points in time. But it doesn't have to be that difficult. It doesn't have to be that capital intensive, is what you're saying by the IRA rules, that 80/20 rule. So I want to clarify the 80/20 rule. That's, you've got to put 80% of the value of the asset back into it?
Exactly, Joel. Yep.
Okay, and it's based on the individual asset, correct?
Individual asset, yeah. The IRS sees it as a facility, so it's turbine by turbine. The IRS defines a turbine as a facility.
Okay, so yeah, because some wind farms, I mean, we know one wind farm, we were talking to someone the other day, they had like 4 different types of turbines on it. So how do you value all these? So that's the next, I guess, part of it, or a big part of it. When Alan says, what are the challenges people take? If you're going to go down this route of a upgrade, refurbish type repower, how do you get the value of these things? Is it consultants? Do you guys do it at DWT yourself? How does the operator do it? Like, what does that look like?
Typically, we got to find out is, okay, I got this 15 to 20 year old asset. can it run another 15 to 20 years? So that's going to be through a number of channels. And at DWT, yeah, we'll partner with you from the beginning stage of understanding what's my fair market value. We don't do that in-house, but we have many people that we work with. So you got to understand what's your fair market value. Then you got to understand what's my integrity of my asset. What is can the machine base, can the foundation, can these tubes handle another 15 to 20 years of extended life that we're planning on providing you? Once you understand that, and you can go through it, a number of independent engineering firms that can help you determine that. But then we come in and really help you put together what we call an optimized 80/20 repower package. We're not going to hand you a package and say, here's a drivetrain package and a couple upgrades, take it or leave it. No, a Siemens 2.3 repower to another Siemens 2.3 repower may look completely different. Because what we want to do is we want to look at, well, what's historically, what does the fault data tell you? Where are your pain points? It's possible that you could have done retrofits or site-wide sweeps or made upgrades through the years that you don't have weaknesses that other owners do. It's possible that you could have replaced drivetrain components. You could have done a generator bearing sweep and taken away that weakness. So we don't want to come in and tell you to replace all your generators when you've already made those upgrades. We want to make sure that your return on investment is as high as possible.
So the goal is, from a turbine by turbine by turbine approach, is to take that turbine, make it better, let it live another 10 to 20 years, and still meet this 80/20 rule. That makes a lot of sense, because the issue I think a lot of operators are having at the moment, if they want to put a new turbine in, there's not a lot of new turbines you can buy right now. That assembly line is pretty well booked out. And if you want to get the production tax credits rolling sooner rather than later, and you like the turbines you have, your technicians understand the turbines you have, the 80/20 rule allows you to keep that same turbine, but just make it better. How do you do that then? As Deutsche Windtechnik, obviously you're bringing a lot of knowledge to the table about a lot of different turbines, because Deutsche Windtechnik is huge and you work with a lot of different turbines. Do you have like an engineering group internal that comes in and says, yes, this GE 1.5 generally has these problems. These are things we can focus on specifically because we have the knowledge of the turbines?
100%. So the biggest thing where we flip the script is transparency. So with any owner, they want to operate their asset. They want to optimize it. They want to run things the way they want to run it. So the biggest thing for us is we want that too. We want to support you. If you have issues, we want to partner alongside of you. We have US based engineers right here in the US that are based in Houston, Texas. And then we also have an extensive engineering support team over in Europe, over in Germany, where we have our mechanical engineers, our electrical engineers, our blade engineers. We have specific GE engineers, specific Siemens engineers. Whatever you need, we have the engineering support that can help you optimize your asset. So when we think about that, when building a repower package, we think about how do we improve the way that you're currently operating? Maybe it's that for the longest time you've had things that you wanted to adjust or wanted to change, maybe with your current controller system, that you just haven't been able to do that. So then let's target that with a new, third party controller system. And then it's not that we're gonna hold back and try to keep you from changing parameters or adjusting things the way you want. We're gonna partner with you to say, hey, if you have an issue or you have an inquiry or you have something that you want to make better, let's do it. Let's partner together.
So controller systems is a big one. I know I've heard that personally from people doing repowers, is like, well, we have this, XYZ OEM controller and we're kind of locked out of this and we can't get this and we can't get that SCADA data. So that's a great example of something you do an upgrade, but now all of a sudden you have more control. You have the ability to do things that you haven't had before, or data that you want to grab before. So what would you say is your most common, I guess, upgrades? And I know this is a broad question because we're talking GE, Vestas, Siemens, like they're all there's a lot of things out there, a lot of different brands, turbine types. But what would you say is the most common thing that people say, I want to upgrade this right away?
It really depends on the technology and that fair market value of that asset. And MHI 1000, that fair market value is going to differ pretty drastically from a Siemens 2.3. But we take the same evaluation approach. We want to look at where are your pain points. How can we give you the most value for an 80/20 repower package? But I would say, Joel, you're correct. For AEP, improving AEP, it's going to be in your controller. It's also going to be in your blades. Anything we can do where we can uplift your power output. So vortex generators, a lot of customers want leading edge protection. And then on the mechanical side, 100% is drivetrain components. We're never going to steer someone away from reducing their capex on the back end if they can do that. It's all about reducing capex and reducing opex. How do we, if DWT is a partner on the back end on a long-term service agreement, we want to partner with you on the O&M side. If we want to stand behind a product that we know is going to run reliable and we're going to put an availability guarantee behind it, and we got to deliver on the front end during the construction period when we're putting upgrades and installing these components in your turbines to make sure that we're really setting you up for success.
I think that's a really important thing to touch on here is Deutsche Windtechnik as a company. I mean, if you're in wind, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you've heard of Deutsche Windtechnik. So what you guys are offering as well is, hey, we'll come and do your repower. On the back end of it, we'll also run the wind farm for you and give you, and you're even going to the point of giving availability guarantees. Is that what I heard?
Yep, that's right. And then it's the tricky piece with this 80/20 and the IRA is that you have to have 15% of your total labor hours for your construction period have to be performed by qualified apprentices. So that's the next piece. So that's something new. That's something that's new that's been introduced to the wind industry. So DWT actually has our own internal apprentice program, so we can meet that labor requirement. And that's really a key piece because without that piece, owners aren't going to be doing 80/20 repowers. So that's a really important aspect of these 80/20 repowers is being able to meet those labor requirements, not only for prevailing wage at the local rate of the construction project, but also the apprentice labor hour percentage requirements.
Well, how soon should I bring Deutsche Windtechnik in before my site gets repowered? Just trying to understand what the logistics are here. Because one of the things I hear about most frequently in terms of repowering, particularly if they're just doing work up tower, is what about the concrete? What about the tower? How do I know that those two pieces, which are the critical pieces of holding everything together, how do I know that those two pieces are okay to live another 20 years? There must be a little bit of engineering that goes on ahead of time, and maybe just some monitoring that goes on ahead of time to know, like, okay, we understand what the real issues are with this farm. We've monitored it, and we think these turbines you can just leave alone and upgrade. While this turbine over here, maybe we got to rip the foundation out. Maybe you don't want to repower that one.
I mean, we're a partner that will partner with you throughout the full process. Whether it's you need someone that will help you evaluate the fair market value. If we don't do it in-house, we're not going to tell you that we can do it, but we can steer you in the right direction for the right industry experts that can help you navigate along those steps. But we'll be your partner shoulder to shoulder up. Okay, let's determine your fair market value. Okay, you have your fair market value. Now we need to determine structural integrity. Okay, you have your structural integrity. Now let's start evaluating fault data. Our engineers will be telling you, this is the data I need. These are the reports that I need. And when they start going through that, it's a back and forth collaborative conversation to understand what makes sense on an 80/20 repower. It's not this, here's our quote, here's our bid, take it or leave it. That's not how it works. That's not how it works with us.
Tyler, what does that time frame look like when they say, okay, Deutsche Windtechnik, hey, I'm putting my trust in you, go. How much time do you need to overlook a site before you really understand how it works and what you can do to it?
You'd be surprised at how quick we can turn some of these evaluations, but I would say it can be as quick as a few weeks and as long as a few months.
That's quick.
That's a lot faster than I thought.
I was looking to hear like 18 months or something like that.
Now that's for the evaluation and understanding what does an 80/20 look like. And you certainly have customers that are more motivated and their legal teams are set up and ready to go. But then what we'll do is we'll be open and honest with you about, okay, so we'll support you with the engineering side. We'll support you with the procurement side. We have the full supply chain folks that can help you understanding, okay, you're telling me this is the components and these are the upgrades that I need, but can we get that? Everyone knows supply chain is constrained. And if one company is talking about 80/20 and repower, then another company is talking about 80/20 and repower. So we'll be open and honest about, okay, maybe we want to do this upgrade, but if that doesn't work for the project timeline, then maybe this other upgrade makes sense because of the procurement time. So the procurement time is a really critical piece.
The supply chain is a critical piece to repowering. You do see a lot of sites where they want to repower and they want to put new bearings in, but there aren't bearings available. So they're kind of stuck. Navigating that is probably the hardest part in the repowering, is getting the components that you want to be on the turbine. But Deutsche Windtechnik has those resources to either they carry those parts, or they know how to procure those parts. And the procurement piece is probably the most difficult part of repowering. You want to explain how strong that procurement piece is for Deutsche Windtechnik, because you have been able to do these 80/20 projects?
Yeah, the big thing is global. You got to think global. So with 80/20, there is a piece of domestic. So there is a domestic content bonus adder for the IRA. Very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult because most of our materials and a lot of our components for these wind turbine assets come from overseas. So that piece is there, but you have to think global of where do these parts come from. We have our U.S. supply chain, and then we have our global supply chain in Germany, and that's really the critical piece. These are people that have been working in the wind industry. DWT Inc. was founded in 2004. So these are folks that have been partnering with the Siemens and the Vestises and building those relationships with the large supplier providers for many, many years. And you just have to think larger scale, and you have to be really unique on your strategy on how you're going to procure these parts, because everybody needs parts to perform these repowers.
Well, what kind of performance improvements can you typically deliver here? If you're going to put vortex generators on, you're going to clean up a lot of the drivetrain, clearly, get the CMS installed, put a new controller in. What are we talking about in terms of numbers, in terms of percentage upgrade?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the asset. I mean, it really depends on, is it a 1 megawatt machine? Is it a 2 megawatt machine? And really the components that you're going to be installing. But anywhere from, I would say, a 1 to 4 to 5% uplift with the upgrades, depending on what all you install. And then the reliability piece. I mean, when we're coming on the back end, when construction phase is finished, and we're coming in with a long-term service agreement, Deutsche Windtechnik really matches the OEMs, where a lot of these technologies, we're high 90s availability guarantee. So we have to stand behind the quality and the product that we're putting out there.
So you need products like strike tape from WeatherGuard to make sure you don't have lightning damages. That's what you need.
Exactly, Joel. That's exactly the product that we need. Yes.
So let me ask you this question, because I've heard this before from a few people, like, hey, we're thinking about doing a repower, but if we do a full repower, we have to renegotiate our PPA. And they don't want to do that because they have a really good PPA in place. Do you have to, does that come into play as well with the 80/20s, or do you get to bypass some of that?
It really depends on the site and the owner and the situation. But yeah, some of our owners are doing that. It really depends on the situation.
There's a difference there too, because you're looking at the cost. So if you have a $200 million wind farm and you're going to do a full repower, the classical way repowers have been done, which to me is it's hard to watch that as an engineer and as people that know what's going on, because like those assets are still fine. Why are we taking them down? Why are we replacing blades and hole nacelles and all this stuff when the thing is still running? Let's do something different, like you guys are doing. The 80/20 repower, where we're going to use the same equipment, we're going to keep it out of landfills, we're going to keep this asset running. But people they look at it like, oh, I don't know about this PPA thing. However, there's two ways in my mind. CapEx is one thing. So if you have a $200 million wind farm, it's going to cost you probably $150 million to do that, full on repower, where you don't have to do all of that, spend all of that cash. So your capital versus the money spent and money made can maybe even make up for that PPA difference.
Yep. Your risk is really much lower. Again, like I talked about, the permitting risks. I mean, you think of a lot of these components that I'm talking about, it's no different than when you're operating the site. You don't have the large permitting, you don't have the big crane. Sometimes we do have big crane costs, but not all the time. But you're not introducing new technology that you just don't understand. You spend all this money and all this capital training up your technicians to get them to understand these turbines, and then you have a reliable asset and you have a reliable site that you're operating. Why not keep that going and take out the parts that upgrade the parts that are causing you pain, and you really take out that unknown, those bugs, those years of pain and suffering, and it really can target some value added components that really make a difference.
What is the future for 80/20 refurbishment? Is it growing like I think that it should? Because I think Joel's point is right. It is sort of painful to watch blades being dumped and recycled that have a lot of life left in them. A lot of those older blades are tough as nails. And a lot of the equipment and the drivetrain is really tough. Are you seeing more action and more people picking up the phone and calling Deutsche Windtechnik and calling you, Tyler, and saying, tell me about 80/20. Explain how this works. How do I get this done?
100%. I mean, we've had customers that are very, very well versed in 80/20, understand it very well. You have customers that are this is a new concept to them. They weren't thinking. They were thinking about tearing down their turbines a few months ago, and this has been a new concept for them. But 80/20, assuming things aren't going to change with the new government change, it's not going to go anywhere, because you think the turbines right now that are 15 to 20 years old, those are going to be the low hanging fruit. Those are the ones that are going to be getting repowered right now. In 5 to 10 years from now, that is going to overturn, and the turbines that were 10 years old are now 20 years old. The turbines that are 5 years old are now 15 years old. So it's going to continue to have these turbines that are always going to be optimal for an 80/20 repower.
I understand this. This is really fascinating to me. I believe 80/20 is the way for a lot of operators over the next couple of years are going to move forward, because there's a limited number of new turbine slots, and it isn't like they're designing new turbines all the time. Right now, you're seeing fewer and fewer turbines being even offered, so your selection is very narrow of what you can install. I know a lot of operators that love their GE 1.5 or their Siemens turbines that just do not want to replace them. They need to be really considering using Deutsche Windtechnik and getting an understanding of what the financing piece of this is, along with the engineering piece, quickly, because there's going to be a long line, obviously, at your door, Tyler. You're going to have a lot of people saying, hey, help me, help me, help me. It's better to be in the front of that line and then the back of that line. How do they get a hold of you? How do they connect with you? How do they start this process and learning what their assets are worth and learning what engineering things need to be done?
Yeah, I mean, reach out to us. We have a mailbox set up focused on repower. So that's repower at Deutsche-Windtechnik.com. Get on our website, check us out, reach out to me. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. But I mean, you're right. There's so many reliable assets out there. Think of the MHI 1000. Everyone that has those assets, that's had those assets for some time, that's taken care of them. Reliable machine. They know it can run. They know it's bulletproof. Me being a former Clipper tech, man, I wish 80/20 repower would have been an opportunity, because we could have saved those assets, because I sure enjoyed working on them. But there's probably a lot of people that say differently. But man, I would have loved to have saved more of those assets and had an 80/20 repower for those.
That's why I need to get a hold of Tyler and Deutsche Windtechnik. And if you go to their website, I'm going to spell it out because I have trouble with it, and I know everybody else does too. If you're an American, but spelling Deutsche and Windtechnik are not easy, is DEUTSCHE-Windtechnik.com. You go to that website, you can get a hold of Tyler and get your 80/20 repower situation figured out, and now's the time to do it. Tyler, thank you so much for appearing on the podcast. I love having you on. I learned a tremendous amount.
Appreciate talking with you guys. As long as it's not talking about the Wisconsin Badgers with Joel, I'll chat with you guys all day long.